It is our honor to announce this year's recipient, Ellen Holladay. Ellen, will you please join us on stage? Few words about our honoree. Ellen joined Motion Industries in 1990 as managers of systems planning, and through her 28 years of experience in IT and supply chain management, is now the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer. She has led the development of Motion's highly refined supply chain capabilities, including a comprehensive integration platform designed to address complicated business-to-business transactions. In addition to CEO responsibilities, Ellen also leads the e-business and operational excellence groups within Motion. And Ellen is also the recipient of BSA's 2018 Lifetime Achievement Award. Ellen has a lot in common with Mrs. McDonald, whom she knew personally. When Motion Industries acquired BC Bearings in 2010, Ellen was involved in assuring that the company was in good hands with Motion and that Mrs. Mack's legacy and vision would live on. In nominating Ellen for the award, Motion Industries Executive Vice President Randy Breaux wrote, "Like Mrs. McDonald, Ellen has vision, passion, and energy to make PT motion control industry better tomorrow than it is today. She is a proven leader, and we are all better off because of her affiliation. Please join me in congratulating Ellen Holladay."
Thank you so much, Brian and Scott. Just so meaningful to me. And thank you so much to the PTDA Foundation. I'm really humbled and grateful for this honor. I did have the pleasure of meeting Mrs. McDonald on a few occasions, but mostly I learned about her legacy through her employees and her family when BC Bearings joined Motion Industries in 2010. When I first visited their headquarters in Vancouver, I sat down and I noticed a coffee table book with Mrs. McDonald's picture on it. I started flipping through the pages and I was immediately fascinated by the story of her life. And so Dermot Strong kind of noticed my interest and in Dermot's way said, "You know, Ellen, we can get you one of those if you want them." And so he did ship it to my home. I still have it today. And if you haven't read it, the name of the book is called "You Got That Right." And she did on so many fronts. The way she responded to adversity, her drive, her love for people and relationships, and most of all, the way she passionately gave back to those communities that she believed in and she was a part of. All of this while raising a large, very large, and very successful family that I know she's very proud of. So I think it would be hard for any of us to ever measure up to the accomplishments of Wendy McDonald, but that's okay. For me, just reflecting on her legacy over the past few weeks has made me realize that some of the principles she followed really are timeless, and I'm so pleased that we're keeping her memory alive through this award. Like Mrs. McDonald, and I think so many of you in this room, I did not have a textbook career progression in the PTMC industry. I actually majored in English and linguistics at Auburn University. I taught English for 3 years and then decided to pursue something a little more lucrative. So I went back to school and I began work on my MBA in cost accounting. Shortly before graduating, I was thrilled that Ernst & Winnie, one of the Big 8 accounting firms at the time, wanted to interview me. I just couldn't wait to start my career in accounting. But when I went on the job interview, much to my surprise, I learned that the job wasn't for accounting at all. My resume had literally landed on the wrong desk. The job was for IT consulting, something that I was completely unqualified to do. So when they asked me how I felt about computers, I decided not to lie. I admitted that I'd never really touched one. Now remember, computers weren't handhelds at that time, but I told them I thought I'd be really good at it if I could just get the hang of it. Somehow I landed the job and my career in information technology was born. So I switched the focus of my MBA to IT, learned a lot more on the job, and then focused my client work in the manufacturing and distribution space. But I wanted a family, and I needed to stop traveling full-time, so I looked for a company with work-life balance. There was a company in Birmingham called Motion Industries. I really didn't know much about it, but I knew it had a great reputation and it was growing really fast. And you know, given my love for motion pictures, I thought it was a natural fit. I couldn't wait. So I went on the job interview, and when my future boss suggested that we tour the warehouse, I was completely confused. What did the warehouse do with making motion pictures? So we went on the tour, and then he said, you know, how would you feel about developing a company operating system for bearings and PT distribution? Well, I wasn't really sure what he meant by company operating system, and I definitely did not know what PT was. But I forced a smile, and I said, of course. I mean, I've dreamed of doing that since I was a little girl. So my career in the PT industry was born. 6 years later, I was promoted to CIO, and I became actively involved in industry associations. Scott McPherson was actually the reason that I got involved. Now, we didn't know each other at the time, but he was the chairperson of the IT committee at BSA, and he was moving into a higher leadership position. So my boss at the time, Bill Stevens, very involved in BSA, and he asked if I would step in and take Scott's place. Of course, nobody really ever takes Scott's place, but that's what he asked me to do. So that's when I found out that I loved association work. It gave me the opportunity to learn so much more about our industry, to meet the major players, and to get different perspectives. Since that time, I've been fortunate enough to work with others on a lot of exciting initiatives in our industry, and I've never stopped loving what I do. Over the past 18 years, I think our associations have really progressed. Not only are there more women, there's more professional diversity all around. We have sales and operating professionals, accountants, human resources, and sometimes you even let a few IT people in the door. I think we've just learned that it takes a broad talent pool to be successful as individual organizations and as an industry. I'd like to wrap up with some thoughts for future leaders, but I don't want to use my words because Wendy McDonald's are so much better, and I've chosen a few right from her book, You've Got That Right. I love them because they're just straight talk. So when Mrs. McDonald was interviewed for her book, she was asked about the keys to success, and she said, you know, if I think about it, sometimes you just have to shut up and listen. And listen she did. She listened to her customers, and she had many trusted business advisors. She knew that listening was a key skill. When she was asked how she was so successful with no formal training or experience, Mrs. McDonald said, it's simple. I just went ahead and did it. Sometimes I think Nike might have chosen that Just Do It campaign from Wendy B. McDonald. Her advice to women: you can do anything you want if you have the heart. Just be yourself. And finally, advice to all of us: keep your word, trust your instincts, always be authentic, and never give up. Wendy B. McDonald had very little formal training, but somehow she instinctively knew everything that was important to be successful. Thank you so much to the PTDA Foundation for giving me the opportunity to spend some time to reflect on some of her values this morning. I also want to thank those in this room for your partnership and your support and your friendship. And to my husband, who's attended countless association meetings with me, many times as the only male spouse. It was tough. And finally, to the Motion leadership team, past and present. You've continually supported me and my involvement in the industry, and I'm so proud to be part of a company that believes in giving back. Thank you very much.